Hi there. Welcome to The Future of Fashion, podcast by the Exponential Academy. At the Exponential Academy, we inspire industry leaders to change company culture to keep up with the pace of tech, right? So today, I have somebody extremely fascinating in the studios. I have Sally Dominguez, who is a futurist, an inventor, and an exponential strategist. She's been dedicating her life to unlock creative potential and designing solutions for a rapidly changing world. As a 10x innovation strategist, Sally works with global organizations, helping them shift from thinking incrementally to bold, transformative solutions. Who better than to have in this episode of The Future of Fashion? Because we all know what's happening in the world of fashion. Welcome to the studio, Sally. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Shami. I love that introduction. I'll just sit on that for a while.
Yeah. So I know I've spoken about your background, but I just want you to spend a little bit of time to give a quick snapshot of what was your journey to get here and what's keeping you busy.
My journey is a swirly one. In fact, my whole career and life is swirly. So swirly has become my kind of my thing. I'm an architect and a singer. I've designed various things. And then I was asked after I'd won a few awards for some of my inventions, and I was judging invention on TV in Australia and really being not the bad cop, but the constructive critical judge to help develop further. I was asked to teach my thinking strategy to school kids in New South Wales and their teachers. And I developed a thinking strategy based around the theory of multiple intelligences called adventurous thinking, which I now use to help people bounce out of expertise and into possibility thinking as part of my mindset shift work. So I've worked with NASA, worked with Sony, worked with Tapestry, worked with small startups as well, a lot of Brazilians. But really, as you said, my passion is to activate creative confidence in others, and not just activate, but to really see results from people feeling optimistic about the future and thinking in the most circular and impact way possible.
Absolutely. I love fashion too, Sally, and I'm probably one of those another squiggly, career person from being an engineer to being in the fashion world and now managing a farm. But I still love fashion, and exactly like you said, love to buy branded stuff. And it's not easy for the industry professionals within the fashion world when everyone's asking for growth, and then there's this other side to say you are probably the second most polluting industry in the world. But you see, I think that's where folks like you are in conversations like this, and folks like you need to be in boardrooms talking to leadership.
Absolutely.
Because it needs a different type of thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to say, don't grow, but then what, right?
Yeah.
So
and if you're a public company, that's tricky because you're answerable. You're responsible.
Correct.
I was recently with one of the biggest accessory companies in the world who I'm working with at the moment. And I was talking to them because they're US based, the market is all over the place. And I was talking to them about the Trump administration tariffs that were coming up, that of course, with so much of this fashion is made offshore and brought back in, those tariffs are going to massively smash their margins. But even within the course of this little workshop in 2 hours, by giving them some tools and pushing them to think outside the regular supply chain, regular to market strategy, they were looking at, we could do localized things and smaller, and it could be this, and it could be different materials. Everybody is capable of thinking like that and actually rethinking what fashion can look like.
I think people or the industry needs to think the product is something else. I think so far they're talking the product is a piece of apparel or a pair of footwear, right? And we have to start this what if. What if the product is happiness? What if the product is confidence, right? And the industry has been going on for so many years, giving confidence to people, giving happiness to people in the form of clothes, right?
Yeah.
So if nothing changes, Sally, what do you think? You're a futurist. And if the fashion industry continues the way it does, what do you think the future looks like?
Yeah, well, I think it's intertwined. It's the convergence of all sorts of industries with crazy amounts of waste who need to not just pull it in by 10%, but radically rethink what they're doing, right? Fashion, yes. building, crazy. Rip me out a kitchen every 10 years and whack a new one in and just put it in landfill, food waste. So I think it's a holistic issue. We know it's a holistic issue. And this is, of course, the advantage of sitting across various industries. It's energy, it's transport, it's the raw materials, it's chemicals. And I do think, if we keep on going the way we're going, we're using technology, generative AI and whatever, to basically coerce consumers into buying.
To make more. Yeah, absolutely.
We're doing great stuff. We're building experiences. We're making a hybrid, blah, 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 stories and experience. But what if you turned those technological tools, those technology pieces, and you went, all right, let's look at the 8,000 chemicals that go into the fashion industry. And let's analyze how we could replace all of those with things that did similar. Could make something fire retardant, but no bromides. Could make clothing look good on the hanger, but let's lose the formaldehyde. So, or maybe when you buy something, they quickly air wash it so that the formaldehyde's gone. I don't know why it's there in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think we're at this point, this tipping point. Of course, everybody keeps saying, but if it keeps on going, then it's not just fashion that's bringing us down and creating these piles of just toxic crap. It's nearly every industry that is capitalist, unfortunately. And those countries and those philosophies and cultures that aren't as consumerist suffer the brunt of our rampant consumerism. And I mean, it's driven by social media. It's driven by algorithms online. I get on Instagram and I want to buy everything. Horrible. I have to tell myself that it's a joke, So I try and stay optimistic, Shami. But, we actually require massive change in a bunch of different industries. And fashion could lead, because it has the possibilities of being really experimental, but then going out to the masses. We could see incredible innovation just using AI and brilliant human creativity to kind of change the chemicals, the materials, the process, whether it's in the pre-consumer or the post-consumer.
Yeah. So, one is, the physical product, the materials, the chemicals, the restricted substances, laws of the land, what's allowed, what's not allowed, all that. Those are some of the hurdles, as the industry professionals would say, that they need to navigate. So they're already navigating that because, boom, one country would come and say, this is our list of restricted substance, another country. So that's tangible stuff. They go back into the design room and figure out a new product that doesn't have it, or just got it just the right amount so that they can go under the radar. So that's happening, but I don't think that's enough. So one thing, you're in the field of exponential thinking. I do a certain amount of work with the Exponential Academy, where we believe that everything is going to be data, right? Whether it's this pen or your cardigan, which you're wearing. Yeah, it's data. And once data comes out into the world in digestible chunks, I think one of the things that needs to change in every industry, but now we're talking about fashion, is the mindset of the consumer.
Yeah, the instant gratification mindset is ridiculous.
Correct.
And again, it's being fed by social media algorithms and by all sorts of algorithms. As soon as we're online, our choices are being pushed back to us and recorded and taken, our reactions with eyes through cameras, to throw more stuff at us from a consumer point of view.
So that's the way it's written. That's the way the algorithm is written, and it's having a fantastic effect where people are buying more. Now let's look at the positive side, where the algorithm is written to allow us to make human decisions, right? It's possible. Like you have the Greenpeaces of the world.
Yeah. But I fear that we need critical mass of people who are willing to weigh profit up with human behavioral change for the greater good. Because the people that are running those algorithms right now, the people that are owning the main social engines, are very clearly, demonstratively not about maintaining culture.
Okay, so that's the business world, right?
Yeah.
But we also have the activist and the NGO world, and everyone's getting tech savvy. So I'm just thinking out loud with a fellow futurist. What if the Greenpeaces of the world start getting, savvy with tech?
Yeah.
And so just like the virality of the Black Lives Matter movement, the Me Too movement, so somebody just starts it and it goes, and then it's brought a lot of organizations to its knees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like what if somebody developed a tool? Say you had a tool on your phone that every tag, you could take a photo of a tag on a garment, and it would, whether it's been blockchain or whatever, it would show you how long it took to get to you, when it went through, what chemicals are in it, blah, blah, blah. Like you can already do with some foods. There are some people that have developed apps where you can pop it on the barcode and you can learn about whether a skin conditioner actually is full of chemicals and particularly bad for you or not. So I think consumer education from bottom up is super important, particularly because we're in an era of profound distrust. And if we have people at the top telling us that everything is okay, it tends to be these days kind of amazing, the lack of trust in institutions and places that used to be so trusted. You know, this Edelman Trust Barometer just last year came out and said, for the first time ever, the 20,000 people surveyed are saying they trust a friend as much as they trust a scientist to give them an answer on something, which I think is fascinating. So I think you're absolutely onto something. I think that if we as inventors or an activist or whatever start developing tools and then put the tools in the hands of everybody, and at the same time, I think we need, like some European middle schools or primary schools, we call them primary in Australia, are teaching kids at a really young age how to identify fake news and how to control the amount of media and digital effect that is had on them, right? So if you educate kids as part of their school education to understand what's happening with the algorithms and then educate them to come up with solutions themselves, I think that a combo of tools that are available and free and hackable and kid education that can then, as they come through, be much more savvy about the algorithms that are hitting us nonstop, we could actually have really scalable effect.
It's just that something that somebody needs to press to get the whole balance, out of whack.
Yeah.
So it's that little thing that somebody out there is going to find and come up with the help of tech that will suddenly get the Gen X's and the Gen Alphas to say, I don't need another black tea.
Do you want them to buy less? Do you want them to buy only circular items that are kind of sustainable, or like what? I mean, there's so many things that we could do to affect what we're looking at. What would you want?
I want the consumer to satisfy their need, right? And their need could be anything. Today, their need is, I want that dopamine shot, and Justin Bieber's wearing that. And, all these artists are wearing it, and Zara has come out with a replica. So they want that. But that need is changing to more of a social need where I don't want to be a part of this. There are lots and lots of Gen Alphas who are saying, I'd rather buy a digital avatar and spend that amount of money, right? If I'm going to spend $300 on let's say, a designer label of maybe a wristband, they are willing to pay the same amount when it's digital so that their personality on screen is as powerful, right? So I was talking to somebody who invests in esports, and he was saying that company paid a designer $50,000 for one assignment just to design one jacket and for one episode of that game, and they hit $100 million of sales.
Crazy.
Now, that's all a company wants, right? They need the bucks, whether they're selling jackets.
There is the hidden cost, right? Energy cost of everything digital and everything else. The energy cost is really interesting. I mean, if people were messing around and using fast speed internet, it'd be interesting to look at the energy and water use of the fashion you didn't buy versus energy and water use of what you're doing digitally. Because I mean, that's a whole other bag of worms. That's another.
Okay.
Another episode.
We could talk about another one. But so, having spoken about possibilities of something that could change the balance in the consumer world, what would be one piece of advice for you for leaders in potential successful fashion brands? What should they be thinking about? What should the conversation be in the boardrooms? Should it just be growth, or should
conversation?
It be something else?
No, well, I think it should be always it should start with purpose. What are you existing to do? What impact at scale is it that you want to have outside of profit in the world? Every time I go into a corporate, especially one that's going really well and their growth is on target, they're like, yeah, we don't need that because we're making money. I'm like, but you do. Because once you have your growth, and you know this because it's the basis of exponential thinking and mindset, is if you say our purpose is, say, for instance, the company I'm working for, democratize luxury, right? That's your purpose. You want to make things accessible, available. You want that feeling of success to be across a greater demographic. That now opens up all sorts of interpretations of growth. And it could be some digital, could be some hybrid, could be some experiential stuff. And you can create an amazing environment that people want to keep coming back to, as so many stores and brands are doing now as an integral part of their sales. At what point can the experience become the product, right? We love experiences. We know Gen Z loves experiences and they love to be in there in the moment, right? So I think that the most important thing is for these people to position purpose and impact-driven purpose. What do I want to improve in the world, for people or for environment? And once you know what that is, and then you position yourself, then think about growth through the lens of purpose. You know, go for it. If you have to have growth, which many people do, it's a basis of capitalism. So if you're that company and you're making money from other people, that's what you need to do. But let's go at it through an impact lens, and let's do what we do in the most positively impactful way possible.
Absolutely. And I think, having spent so much time in the world of human-centered design, disruption, innovation, there are some examples that just blow you away on what people have come up with, right? And I'm talking way, way, way back. I'm talking even in 1996. When we were talking about restricted substances, there was one example that came up and it was in the automotive industry. They've always been in the forefront of efficiencies. It was not so much sustainability, it was more efficiency on buying paint to paint the cars. And, the usual minimum quantity, you have to buy so much of red, but then there's always be something left behind and they didn't know what to do with it and all that. And then somebody came up with saying, let the paint manufacturer do the painting, right? So it was in the best interest of the manufacturer to use the paint most efficiently so that the cars have the quality, you don't have a lot of. So it's something like that. And I have a huge belief in the potential of human creativity that can change this. You can't think of fashion as clothing and footwear and accessories. I think somebody out there should absolutely reframe what fashion is if you wanted to change.
Yeah. If your purpose is to improve the planet, say, then you go, what does that mean for me if I want to be in fashion? What is fashion?
Yeah.
If that's my purpose, what has fashion become? And is it the look of something, or is fashion actually a movement that is a whole cultural phenomenon, which I generally think it is in its best moments.
Yeah.
In its mass moments, but in its best moments. It's culture revealing and culture changing, which we need. So how does that then manifest so that you've got your growth, but you're actually moving everything forward? It's a very interesting time, isn't it? Because we've got
I think it's fantastic. And I think leadership, there should be courage in the fashion world. Because It's easy to do the same thing over and over again, I think. We've done it so many years, make the same collections of spring 2025, fall 2025, and it goes on and on. The same old shit a different day. But to change all that, I think that's the beauty. And so with that thought, and the last question, Sally, one piece of advice to a CEO, young CEO of a fashion brand.
I think that it's a time in the world where people can have some fear, have some uncertainty, and retreat to what they know. I think we're seeing that in fashion a little bit. I think we're seeing that in many industries. To your point, be bold and lean forward, but as a leader, lead from behind. So a leader, is a dealer in hope. That's the classic Napoleon line. And it's never been more important to be giving hope to people. So what are you doing with the product that you create, with the environments that you make, with the strategy that you're creating? Are you bringing hope to as many people as possible? If you're not, maybe it's time to look at your purpose and rethink what exponential impact could mean for your business.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sally. It was wonderful. I love the energy talking to you. And have a wonderful day today. Thank you.
Bye.